Hey everybody, it's Abu, host and producer here at the Lower Party Podcast Network, and I have a bit of a different video for you today. So I just got access to Amazon Luna, which is a cloud gaming service that Amazon will be launching soon. This is still a very early beta. I forgot I even signed up for early access, but I got the email and I got access today. So I wanted to share some gameplay with you guys, share some footage with you guys, and share some impressions of my first about hour or two with this service. Now, unlike a lot of gamers out there, I'm a pretty big proponent of cloud gaming as someone who doesn't have a gaming rig, as someone who hasn't PC gamed in years. So cloud gaming has been incredible for someone like me. Currently, I'm using Geforce now to play things like Crusader Kings 3 and Destiny 2, which I just got into like 4 years too late, and a number of other games that I normally wouldn't have access to. And if I did have access to them, I wouldn't have access to them at max graphics settings at 1080p and a rock solid 60 FPS. So that's been a big boon for me and I've enjoyed it quite a bit. So let's dive into it. I have 3 key takeaways, but before I jump into those, I want to set the scene a bit. Amazon Luna obviously is a cloud gaming platform from Amazon. You can see here that it's available on a number of devices, Mac, PC, mobile. You can use controllers, although I'll get to that a little later on. I couldn't get my Xbox controller to work with it quite yet. And of course, you need a good Wi-Fi connection, and that's key. I want to pause here a bit and talk about that. You can see here that I have a rock solid 130 megabits per second down, which is more than what Luna requires. Luna's minimum recommended requirement is 10 megabits down. I'm also using an Ethernet connection, which ensures that that instability of Wi-Fi, the up, down, is going to be rock solid and stable because I'm wired in, I'm hardwired in. So that's key, and I wanted to point that out at the top of the video. Now let's get into my 3 key sort of takeaways with Amazon Luna at the moment, and also these happen to be 3 red flags. These takeaways aren't the best, but let's get into it. Number 1, I mentioned controller support earlier, and Amazon has their own Luna controller or whatever that they're peddling on this service. The caveat here is I have a wired Xbox controller that I use with Geforce now. So you can see this is gameplay right here of me playing Destiny 2 on Geforce now with a controller. So that's something to be aware of. At the moment, on early access on Amazon Luna, I couldn't get a wired Xbox controller to work in any of the 3 or 4 games that I fired up and tried. I was stuck using mouse and keyboard. Takeaway number 2 is you can see right here on your screen in the Amazon Luna launcher, there's a really small game selection to start. There's some indies, there's some older games, but there's a big lack of sort of heavy hitter AAA titles that would make you want to sign up for Luna. Now, these games are the ones that are included in the subscription. You can add an Ubisoft Plus subscription to your Luna subscription, which brings your total up to $15 a month. And that gives you access to some heavy hitting titles here, Assassin's Creed, The Division, the Far Cry games. But I didn't sign up for that. There was no free trial. I didn't feel like paying any money. And finally, another little quirk that I noticed, and my 3rd key takeaway from my early experience with Luna so far, is that I'm not quite sure what version of the game is running. When you jump into the settings for something like Control, there's no graphics options. I'm not sure if the PC version of the game is running or if this is a specifically Luna optimized version of the game that doesn't allow me to change my graphical settings, but I presume the game is just running at 1080p and whatever Luna decides it can run at 60 FPS. That seems a little bit restrictive, especially as someone coming from Geforce now, where I'm basically streaming the full PC version of whatever game I happen to be playing. So you can see right here, in Destiny 2, I can hop into the settings and I can change everything I could if I was running it on an actual PC, because Geforce Now is basically just emulating a PC on my Mac, and that's actually what's happening. I'm running it on a PC. I'm not quite sure what's happening on the back end of Luna, but in the 3 or 4 games that I tested, there were no graphical options that I could change outside of basic stuff like turning off motion blur or turning off film grain, or other things you might see on a console. But it's presumably locked into whatever graphical setting that the Amazon Luna team decided was best, or at least would run best. So those are obviously some issues with Amazon Luna at the moment. Hopefully they'll be addressed as we get closer and closer to the official launch of the service. But I do want to say, in my time with the games that I played a little bit of Control, I played a little bit of SteamWorld Quest. It ran fine. Again, my internet was good enough to handle it, and I was able to play the game comfortably. There was no noticeable input lag on my mouse and keyboard that was distracting enough to be an issue. There was no stuttering or buffering, no screen tearing. The game ran well, and it looked good enough. Again, I couldn't change any graphical settings, so I don't know if this is Control running at max settings with fancy things like ray tracing turned on. It doesn't look like it, but it still ran well. So in conclusion, Amazon Luna at the moment is fine. Obviously, it's early days and Amazon still has time to polish up the service before launch and add some enticing features and talk to developers to include their games, but they're really going to have to do all of those things and maybe more to convince people that cloud gaming is the future. As it stands, Amazon Luna just doesn't have that competitive edge yet.
You know what? I'm happy. Happy to be here. Things have quieted down outside. Is it safe to go?
Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you have any questions about Amazon Luna, drop them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer. And I'd love to hear your experience with cloud gaming. Do you use it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's the future? Let me know.